For nearly 2 centuries, one question has followed the Sumerians through every excavation, every clay tablet, and every theory about the birth of civilization. Where did they come from? Then, in 2022, scientists recovered something Mesopotamia had almost never given them before: genome-wide ancient DNA from people who lived in the region roughly 10,000 years ago. It sounded like the answer had finally arrived. Ancient DNA, Mesopotamia, the mysterious Sumerians. But there was a problem. The people whose DNA was sequenced were not Sumerians. And what the genomes actually revealed was both less sensational and far more useful than the claim that science had finally solved the Sumerian mystery. To understand why, we have to go back to the world before Sumer. By around 3200 BCE, Uruk in southern Mesopotamia had become one of the largest settlements on Earth. Administrators were using one of the earliest writing systems, pressing signs into wet clay. Over the centuries that followed, Sumerian cities transformed the region. But their language left historians with a puzzle. Sumerian is a language isolate. No known sister language has survived. No established language family neatly tells us where it came from. That helped fuel a much larger question. Were the Sumerians descended mainly from people already living in southern Mesopotamia? Did important new populations arrive from somewhere else? Or are we forcing a simple origin story onto a region whose history was never simple? Genetics seemed capable of helping. There was only one problem. Ancient DNA does not survive equally well everywhere. Heat damages DNA over time, and the hot environment of southern Iraq makes recovering useful ancient genomes extraordinarily difficult. So researchers could not simply sequence people from a Sumerian cemetery and settle the argument. Instead, the 2022 team looked much farther north and much farther back in time. The study, led by Yosef Lazaridis and an international group of researchers, recovered genome-wide data from people who lived during the Neolithic in parts of southeastern Turkey, northern Iraq, and the northwestern Zagros. These people lived thousands of years before the great Sumerian cities. That distinction is crucial, because the study did not give us Sumerian DNA. It gave us something different, a window into the human landscape of Mesopotamia long before Sumer. And the first finding was surprisingly clear. The people of early West Asia were not living as 4 or 5 isolated populations behind invisible borders. Their ancestry changed gradually across geography. Move across Anatolia, Mesopotamia, the Zagros, the Caucasus, and the Levant, and the genetic picture shifts. Populations were different from one another, but they were also connected. People moved, communities mixed. Children carried ancestry from populations that had once lived farther away. So the world before Sumer was already a network. And then came finding number 2. When researchers compared these ancient genomes with early farmers in Anatolia, they found evidence for at least 2 distinct pulses of ancestry entering Anatolia from populations connected to the Fertile Crescent. One occurred during the earlier pre-pottery Neolithic. A later movement brought additional ancestry related to populations farther south in the Levant. That matters because it shows that population movement across this region was not a single event. It happened repeatedly. Long before Uruk, long before cuneiform, long before anybody could write down where their ancestors had come from. For thousands of years, West Asia was already being reshaped by migration and mixture. And now comes the most important finding for our Sumerian mystery. Finding number 3. The DNA did not solve it. The individuals in this study lived millennia before historical Sumer, and most were sampled far north of the cities we associate with Sumerian civilization. The study does not demonstrate that one of these populations migrated south and became the Sumerians. It does not identify a unique Sumerian genetic signature, and it does not prove that Sumerian stories about mountains preserve the memory of a specific prehistoric migration. Those ideas may be worth investigating, but they are not what this DNA proved. So why does the discovery matter? Because it changes the background to the mystery. The old popular image of Sumer can make the civilization feel as though it suddenly appeared in southern Mesopotamia. Cities, writing, temples, administration, with no deep human story behind it. Archaeology already showed that this was too simple. Settlements, farming, trade, and social complexity developed over long periods before the great Sumerian cities. Now genetics adds another layer. The wider Mesopotamian world had also been connected through human ancestry for thousands of years. That does not tell us exactly who the Sumerians were, but it tells us what kind of world they emerged from, not an isolated world. A crossroads, a region where populations had been moving, meeting, and mixing since long before the first city walls rose from the plain. And that leaves us with the question ancient DNA has not yet answered. What would happen if researchers recovered high-quality genomes from securely identified people who actually lived in southern Mesopotamia during the Sumerian period? Would they show mostly local continuity? Would they reveal ancestry from populations farther north or east? Or would they show the same pattern we keep finding across ancient history? Not one origin, but several populations woven together over time. For now, the Sumerian mystery remains open. The 2022 genomes did not reveal where the Sumerians came from. They revealed something more careful and perhaps more important. Civilizations do not begin on an empty map. Long before the first written histories, people were already moving across it, and ancient DNA is finally allowing us to see them. This is Decode the Past. Subscribe if you want the next investigation into the history hidden inside ancient DNA.